Here we go.
Buenos dias. Good morning, everyone. I am Lauren Rice, Chief Operating Officer of the Unit LLC.
And I am Leon Baptiste, CEO of the Unit LLC, also part of the Global SOA Foundation, as each and every one of us are. And
Good morning. My name is Stephen Jones. 21-year Navy veteran, now Director of Partner Relations for the Global SOF Foundation. It's good to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Okay, first question. Why is Latin America important for the USA?
Stephen, want to take that one first?
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Leon. I appreciate the opportunity to speak today. And just kind of a caveat, I'm not from a Latin descent, but going to Latin America, the importance of Latin America to the United States, I have seen throughout my career, which makes it important to me. And Leon, as you mentioned before we started, happy, what is it? What month is it this week, this month?
Yeah, the Hispanic Heritage Month, Mes de la Hispanidad, as we say in Spanish.
Yes. Well, happy Hispanic Heritage Month, but
thank you.
Beyond proximity and geography, a secure Latin America is critical to U.S. stability here in the Western Hemisphere. A prosperous Latin America is important for many reasons, and not to include the fact that strong democracies, economies, and both provide both security aspects to the United States, but also to increase trade and prosperity for the citizens in both Latin America and in the United States.
Where I'm concerned is all about a strategy. From a strategic standpoint, Latin America is important to the United States. First of all, it's in our backyard. So anything happens in your backyard will affect you sooner or later. You could start looking at it from a Cold War standpoint, from back in the days. The potential for cells coming into the U.S. through our borders, or south of the southern borders, so to speak, all the way to the war and terror that we are in nowadays, which is actually funded by drug trafficking, one of the major problems that we have in the U.S. And I always remember the words of El Chapo, the great drug dealer. You take me out, 3 more would pop up, because the demand is in the U.S. and we're more than happy to provide it. So taking that into account, we have some problems here that we could kind of minimize such potential entry, but take it into account that drug trafficking fuels terrorism, one of the main sources, financial sources of terrorism. We definitely have to work with our partners in Latin America so we can make sure that any damage done is minimized, and by strengthening their democracies, by having strong partnerships. One of them, of course, but not the only, should be the use of U.S. aid, which has done over decades great work in Latin America and other parts of the world. But it's very important to strengthen our partnerships economically, politically with their leaders, and militarily, which is something that's definitely always been done through Special Operations Command. We have the best military in the world, the best instructors. All Latin American forces where we've been, from Southern South America, I'm sorry, Central America, they will attest to such. We have created some great partnerships in that sense, but we got to continue pushing and expanding our friendships in that area. That's why it's so important for us here in the U.S.
Second question, how is the political climate in Latin America?
Stephen, you want to take that first?
Yeah, sure. The political climate is ever changing, and when when you read it, you start reading the literature, you can see that, pretty much all the countries, there's like what they call a super election cycle. And the exit polls on how folks come can really tell you about, the degree of the political climate that is happening down there. For example, there's high election anger as a result of poor political institutions and credibility and legitimacy. Consecutive re-elections, of all the 12 out of the 15 elections that have occurred within the region, only 2 countries have had the consecutive elections or the incumbent winning the next election. Even the United States, you see with our election coming up, the stability or at least general satisfaction of the current government is something that in the region has had difficulty achieving. And one of the elections where the incumbent did win was in Venezuela. So you can talk about the legitimacy of that election and what it actually means if that counts for one of the 2. So even when they are reelected, those elections are contested. And you can see that from the number of runoffs. And as countries, ebb and flow between hyper-capitalism or completely deregulated capitalism, as in the 80s and the 70s and the 80s, to almost complete socialism and state-run organizations, as you did see in Ecuador, and now the deregulation of those industries, you can see that, hopefully within this next cycle, you'll kind of see the Goldilocks tendency, where it's a little too hot, a little too cold, but maybe now it'll be just right, because there is a blick cinema between total capitalism, or let's say deregulation, and then government involvement in services for its people. But for the most part, excuse me, my phone is ringing. Sorry about that. But for the most part, I think what you'll see is folks exercising their rights to vote for fair and free elections. But all that comes with a price. And in some instances, even when you talk about years of democracies, these are very young democracies, but supporting a fair and free election is something that is definitely an interest to follow, but also to help participate in those regions.
I agree with you, definitely. But for you to understand the political climate of Latin America, you also have to take into account how the region was created, the origins of the region. That way, it gives you a better understanding of why things are the way they are. And I'll make an analogy with Latin America and the U.S. And Canada. North America, the U.S. and Canada mainly, mostly people came to this region after the discovery of the continent, running away from potential religious persecution, religious freedom, which was a big problem at the time with the Catholic Church. We all know about the Dark Ages, et cetera, the control that the Catholic Church had over most of the so-called known world at the time, mostly Europe. And to Latin America, which was mostly colonized by Spain, the Spanish conquistadors, so to speak, popularly known, it was adventurers, basically adventurers, guys that were told you have 2 choices in a few cases, not all, but a few cases. You can either spend the rest of your life in jail or emigrate to the New World and help colonize the region. So with that adventure, that mentality, you find families that been in control, dictatorships, through political power since the creation of their nations for decades and decades. We can take Cuba for example. Before the craziness of the people in power right now, you had people like Fulgencio Batista back in the days in Cuba. His dad ruled, and then he ruled for decades at a time. Then, of course, came that communist regime that we know about. But other places, Nicaragua, we remember in the 70s the great battle between the Sandinistas and Anastasio Somoza. His dad was in charge of the country for decades, and then Anastasio Somoza took over. And that basically is the history of most nations in Latin America. That is why, to a certain extent, you've had socialist regimes, socialist groups, communist groups, to be more precise, in civil wars and such types of activities with these dictatorships, oligarchs, so to speak, and because of this, the political climate in Latin America has always been very volatile. I mean, extremely dangerous, and of course, this brings, as a result, a lack of foreign investment, progress. You have talk about the 1%. You talk in this case, you can talk about 0.1% being at the top, and the rest of the country, the vast majority, being in poverty, extreme poverty. So the result of the type of individuals that came to Latin America to colonize that region has given this. Does it have to stay that way? No, of course not. But understanding the origins of the region, you understand why that lack of progress, lack of that incentive, that lack of incentive for betterment of the region. That's my take on that one. Ms. Lauren?
Third question. How is the economic climate in Latin America?
Okay, you want me to go first, Stephen? Well, taking into account, of course, politics and economics are pretty much interrelated. The politics of the land, the job of the political landscape, of the political groups, is to set up a landscape for economic prowess. Now, if you have corruption, if you have a lack of diversity, a lack of inclusion, you will have, as a result, a poor economy. You can observe that places such as Costa Rica, which is considered the pearl of Central America, with a very stable political environment since at least the early 50s, they have also probably the most progressive, inclusive, and thriving economy among Latin American nations, particularly in Central America. Then you have places like Venezuela with a terrible dictatorship, not very much inclusiveness, and the poverty is rampant. You have places like as Panama, my native Panama, in which, as one politician put it out not long ago over there in Panama, you want to do business in Panama, bring your bag of money. In other words, everything is done through under-the-table bribes. Not exactly a very a conducive way of progress. It doesn't foster foreign investment. So from that standpoint, the politics of the region are very much intertwined with the economy, or should I say, with a bad economy. And in this day and age, we live in an AI, ML, artificial intelligence, machine learning era. So because of this, everything happens at warp speed, to coin an expression from Star Wars. And if you're not in tune with the program, so to speak, if you're not setting up the landscape or economic prowess, and if you have a dictatorship, you can see that regions as such are always a few steps back compared to industrialized nations as obviously the United States, Germany, etc. That's my take on that one.
Great. I mean, I think, currently the region and within the last year has been hit by the coronavirus pandemic, but with Latin America being the U.S.'s #1 trading partner, you saw that it only decreased by 10% versus 25% in terms of trade with China. A lot of people think, and they don't know the fact that, that is, our greatest trading partner with the greatest number of free trade agreements, multilateral and bilateral trade agreements between the United States and Latin America, why it's so important. But some of the reasons that Leon brought up about, corruption, transparency, and those in instability, those are the State Department or USAID activities to help stabilize the region. So for example, ways to help increase or maintain that economic activity is, in Ecuador, a country that I'm familiar with, the main priorities are human trafficking and narco trafficking through the region, right? Then obviously the border between Ecuador and Colombia, and the sensitivities in that border region with Colombia. However, the things since 2018, they've spent more than $10 million in there, and the USAID office did leave Ecuador in 2014, but they reestablished a new security cooperation program and office in Ecuador in 2019, which is which emphasizes the commitment to that particular region and country, and then other countries. But the things that the assistance is designed to do is rule of law, civil society, increase government transparency, modernization of capital markets, the ability for monies to flow in and out of the country, improve citizen security, counter illicit trafficking, and transnational crime organizations. And the list continues on, but the one thing that I wanted to bring about specifically is an economic program within Ecuador called America Creces, or American Growth. And then within American Growth, what it is doing is setting up international, or setting the conditions for foreign direct investments into that country in order for them to better prosper. The only reason, the best, the way that you get other host nations to invest in a country is to set conditions for not only for that country to be successful, the host nation to be successful, and then in turn the citizens to be successful in any type of arrangement. So I think programs like Las Creces is doing a tremendous job with the Defense Financial Corporation in terms of finding opportunities to invest in. And those things, as the country grows and prospers, you'll see things like, greater academic achievements, because the folks there will have the ability to what I call the innovation space, to be able to improve the things that are outside, just around them, in terms of conserving the biodiversity, the environment, mitigate risk of natural disasters. You're better prepared as long as the economy in that country is strong.
I agree with you 100%, Stephen. Ms. Lauren, next question.
Considering all this information, how is the security of the region affected by all of this?
Well, let me start by saying, make it short and sweet. An unstable democracy is weak security, basically. We have a lot of unstable democracies, as I said, in Latin America. It all is what we call intertwined, basically a domino effect. When one thing goes wrong, ultimately the other goes wrong. We have done our best to always strengthen the partnerships with our friends in Latin America. Particularly from a military standpoint, particularly our SOF teams have done a fantastic job. They're the best. Also, our intelligence community has been called upon one moment or another to train and create greater partnerships. We're talking about from DEA, FBI, the agency itself. However, it becomes kind of trying to climb a mountain without using your arms because of the instability of their democracies. I remember at one point, particularly in the 70s and the 80s, at the height of the Cold War, we had almost military coups on a monthly basis. In Panama, for example, it was absolutely crazy. So let's keep that in mind. And the key thing is strengthening all the partners in every sector, economics, from a political standpoint and a military standpoint. And that way we'll have a stronger security program for all the nations. And again, as I said, they're in our backyards.
All right, how do we foresee Latin America in the future regarding the USA and the rest of the world? We are in a global economy after all.
I'll take that one first.
Yes, sir.
Just to kind of piggyback off what you said in the previous question, Leon. I do. Overall, I think the region is in a good position, but there are some concerns when you talk about the Northern Triangle, the El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala. A slight hiccup in those regions could be a great disruption to security in that aspect. And I believe Venezuela, the huge migration prospects through there and the refugees and essentially a failed state definitely puts pressure on the region. Economically, being a partner with the United States, hemispherically is the right thing to do, but there's also competition and economic gains to be made with other partners, for instance, like in China. There will be strategic choices to be made. However, I think like-minded Western hemispheric countries, I think will prevail over in that aspect. Regarding, what I foresee in the future, I definitely see a post-COVID economic surge within the region. I definitely see a drive towards bringing manufacturing, if not back completely to the United States, but definitely in the region, there's labor advantages in certain countries down there. So I think as you look at global partners in manufacturing and supply chains, I think Latin America and the Western Hemisphere could be a better bet because we saw the disruption when supply chains were reaching completely across. So with that said, I'll just kind of keep it simple. I do see a post-COVID boom within the region, but we have to address the security challenges that could destabilize the region if left unchecked.
I agree with you definitely. Just recalling, we live in a global economy, and for better or for worse, we're all interconnected, integrated. The name of the game nowadays is social behavioral skills as well as non-traditional cognitive skills, i.e. STEM. So having that knowledge, governments need to place a greater emphasis on human capital. They need to invest in human capital because it doesn't matter how you are now. For the future is automation. The future is AI. The future is ML. And again, they have already started, countries in Latin America, behind the speed limit, so to speak. So they need to pick it up. And I'm an eternal optimist. Until proven wrong, I expect all these countries to really understand the type of environment that we're living in nowadays, and it's about, again, investing in human capital, which most of them haven't. I mean, less than 40% of the vast majority of the environment in Latin America has what you call a tertiary education, basically a post-secondary education, which is needed. You know, just a high school diploma is not good enough nowadays to deal with the environments that we deal with. That's Mike in that one. Anything else, Ms. Lauren, Mr. Stevens?
No, I'm good. I thank you for the opportunity. I enjoy talking about the region. I learned a lot today from you, from the both of you. Great questions, Ms. Rice. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much to everyone, and as we say in Spanish, feliz mes de la Hispanidad, que la pasen muy bien. Happy Hispanic Heritage Month, and I hope you have it well. Thank you.
Thank you.